Hey CC Songwriters, my name is Garrett Wieland and I'm on the board for the CC Songwriters, and I'm also in a local duo called the Independent Thieves, and I've been playing in and around Corpus for about 12 years since I moved here for college. And on the video today I just wanted to share you some of the gig etiquette I've learned from gigging around town for a while, and I have kind of a bulleted list, and I'll go down there and I'll elaborate on some stuff and kind of tell you guys what I've learned. So I've got before the gig, so we've got before you actually get the gig. Always return phone calls in a timely manner. So if somebody calls you or you've been referred to, and you can't get to the phone at the time, call them back as soon as you can. Always be courteous that way. Keep a calendar. This is really important. Keep a calendar somewhere visible so you can always see it and mark down gigs the second you have them finalized. Don't overbook or double book. It looks unprofessional. You'll end up with a rep for being unreliable. This is especially true if you have other people in your band. You want to keep them up to date with what shows you have, and especially if they're in other bands, since we're kind of a smaller place and people are in multiple bands, you got to let them know right away, and you have to have that straight with yourself so you don't double book or actually double book for them. Don't sell yourself short on how much you cost. If a gig has a set price for a set hour, you have to decide if it's worth it for you, your time, your gas money, getting your name out, playing your songs for an audience for that amount of time and money. It all matters what it's worth to you to spend the time singing or performing. And then I've got a little sub list there. At the same time, don't be overly pushy about the price deal. When you're just starting out and establishing yourself, it's best to get the experience first, and you'll find you'll start making money soon after. When talking to a gig contact about a potential gig, always be courteous and professional when they call to touch base with you, especially if someone else referred them to you for a gig. If you can't answer the phone, this is what I said earlier. When they call, return their call in a timely manner and have the courtesy to hear them out completely before you start in with a list of demands. A lot of gigging and getting other gigs and continually working in a smaller town like we're in, or a smaller market, is not burning your bridges, which I'll talk about in a bit. So if somebody refers you, you always want to make sure that you don't make them look bad for that referral, and vice versa if you make a referral for somebody. So if you feel they're not offering you enough money for the gig, take a minute to think about the situation. This is pretty important. Some small venues might not have a huge customer base and can't pay a large amount up front. Ask if you'll be able to set up a tip jar and if there's an alternative compensation, a small food or drink tab for the evening, for instance. If it's for a nonprofit event, don't be rude if they can't pay you much for the gig. Instead of money, you may get free tickets to the event or another event of theirs. If you can't afford to lose money by taking a pro bono gig, politely decline and leave it at that. Don't try to bully them into paying you more. Remember, it's a small town. If you're cool with doing a pro bono gig, ask what merch you might be able to put out, if any. If it's a classy gig, ask if you can display your business cards. So at least, have that out there. That's another thing. It's a side topic, but get some business cards. Be prepared for anything, but remember that you may not be the main focus of the gig, and you're going to have to deal with that a lot, starting out. And any time, really, is depending on what their event is, you might not be the main focus of the gig, and you have to remember that. And you're going to have gigs where you are the main focus, of course, and where it's your show and you're putting on a show. But some gigs are not always going to be like that. In a smaller market like ours, you don't want to burn any bridges if you can help it. And if you want to make the people that refer you look good so that you'll refer to you again. So it's all about building a good reputation and staying employed. You want to let people know that you're reliable. If you're promoting a show on Facebook or other social media, and this is a new thing for us with social media, make sure to tag the venue if possible. The more promotion you get for the venue, the more people attend and buy drinks, food, etc. You'll gain the venue's favor always if you make them money, and you'll lose the gig if you lose the money. So the whole idea for some of those gigs, especially like if you're doing a restaurant gig, is to get people in there and spending money. And so if you promote it really well and you tag them on Facebook and you continuously remind people, if you send email reminders, if you send out reminders to the local newspaper, all of those things help out. So that's anything you can do to get them promotion is good. Time management. So here's another thing. Always plan to be there earlier than you need to be there, before you're scheduled to start playing. And here's why. If you got a PA to set up, you'll want to make sure you have more than enough time to set it up competently. So have more than enough time. If you think it takes 30 minutes to do it, give yourself 45 minutes or more, If they have a PA, make sure you get there with plenty of time to test it all out. Even if they swear their system's in great shape, you honestly won't know for sure until you check it out for yourself. This is very important. Make sure you give yourself enough time to test it out and troubleshoot if needed. And always bring your own PA so you have it as a backup, which moves to the next point. Get you a PA, get you a little portable setup that you can take and you can run sound. If it doesn't have to be super fancy, but get one and learn how to use it. It makes you more marketable in a smaller city if you can provide your own sound. For instance, us and the Thieves, we have powered speakers that we run through a Mackie mixing board, and that works fine. We have two mics that we use, and we use SM58s. Shure SM58s or Shure SM57s are they're workhorses. They can withstand anything, and they sound great, and they're not super expensive. So if you haven't started out yet, that's one way to start, is one option. And you don't have to do that. You got to find what works for you, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It just makes stuff a lot easier if you have one. Lastly, this is my last point. During the gig, don't advertise upcoming shows at competing venues during other shows. I learned that's the hard way. You don't want to try to take away business from that venue you're playing at the time by mentioning some other competing venue. It makes sense, but it might make sense at the time when you're at the gig, but that just, you got to think about that sort of thing when you're at a venue. Alternative to this would be to mention your website or music page on Facebook for folks to check out. Don't shove it down the audience's throat. Just mention it at the beginning of each set and the end of your show. So during the show, you can always say, hey, website's independentthieves.com or whatever your website is. If you want to check us out some more online, our Facebook is also this. Know your audience. This is really, really important. If you're playing an afternoon, early evening crowd with mixed audience or families and singles, you might not want to play your more risque songs if you have them. Always keep in mind who your audience is. If you got kids in the crowd, you don't want to be dropping F-bombs during the show. Bar crowds are a little rougher, so you can always kind of gauge that audience based on how it looks and play some of your more risque stuff if you have it. Don't abuse the bar tab. This is very important, especially if the only thing you're getting is a bar tab and tips. If you've got free drinks for your gig, know your limit. Remember, you have to stay sober enough to remember all those lyrics and parts. So, for instance, a lot of gigs locally are 4 hours long. That's a long time to keep going. And if you're drinking, you gotta know, you gotta punch your weight. You gotta know what you can withstand and still remember stuff. Chances are, if you're a drunken buffoon halfway into a 4-hour set, you're not gonna get hired again. And that's the truth of it. And so those are just a couple little points. Eventually I'll have this thing printed out, or I'll have links to it on our CC Songwriters website, so you guys can download it and have your own copy. Hope that was helpful. Again, my name's Garrett Wieland. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.